One player I wish Giannis got to play with that it was always rumored but never happened was Chris Paul. And Chris Paul just retired officially from the NBA after a very strange year. It's supposed to be a retirement tour with the Clippers. Of course, him and Ty Lue did not like each other. They had their arguments and they pushed Chris Paul away from the team and he decided to retire. And in some ways, it's like very sad that it ends this way for a Hall of Famer. But in other ways, Chris Paul's career ending this way, isn't it kind of just a continuation of what it's always been for him? I mean, in 08, MVP runner-up, they lose in a Game 7 to the Spurs. That's really the first time playoff heartbreak for him. 2011, he gets traded to the Lakers to play with Kobe Bryant. David Stern blocks the trade and reverses it. 2012, he has a right knee injury right before the playoffs. First round sweep, a loss. 2014, Clippers blow a 7-point lead to Oklahoma City in Game 5. CP3 has 2 turnovers in the final 17 seconds and a terrible foul on Russell Westbrook shooting a 3. 2016, broken hand right before the playoffs begin. 2018, Rockets up 3-2 on the Warriors. Chris Paul, a hamstring injury, misses Game 6 and 7. That's the 0 for 27 game Houston had in a Game 7 without him. 2021, they go up 2-0 in the finals over the Bucks. They lose 4 straight. Giannis wins it all. 2025, his career ends this way with him getting released mid-year in the middle of the night on a road trip. It's kind of just fitting in a way with the way his career has gone. But it is sad that it has gone this way because he's one of the greatest point guards of all time. And I'm disappointed. I wish he got to go out with a chance to win, but this is kind of on brand, Drew. This is the way it's gone with Chris Paul.
See, I'd look at it the opposite way. I'd say if you looked back and said a 6-foot point guard was going to play 20 seasons, it was going to be a X amount of, I don't know how many all-star appearances he had. He was going to become one of the greatest point guards of all time, and he didn't end up winning a championship. You would have said he still was overachieving. That's how I look at it. You know what I mean?
I look at it that way too, but I'm just saying that doesn't remove the fact that there's been so many weird
I do
things
think that I do agree with that.
Career.
There have been a ton of, and the other thing that this brings up a great point, which I think isn't mentioned enough. Sometimes things are out of players' controls. Injuries are out of players' controls. What the front office does is out of the players' controls. Like
what the league office does, saying you can't go to the Lakers.
I joke around all the time because we talked about the Sixers a lot. Like the Sixers had back-to-back drafts where they could have drafted Jason Tatum, who I begged them to draft, and then Jaylen Brown. They could have had those two guys with, and you're going, well, that would have changed our franchise. But that doesn't impact, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think that when you look at, when you look at the league and you look at individual players, I think there is an individual aspect that you have to be able to like judge them by and overall accolades, because there are some really good players that have had unfortunate injuries that they can't control. When players are just out of shape because they're lazy, I'm like, that's on the player. When a player is out of shape because they've been injured, I'm like, that's not on the player. They've been injured. Or if a player gets random injuries, that's not on the player. If teammates miss a bunch of shots, that's not on the player.
0 for 27.
And then you look at the opposite. So like, let's say LeBron James, who, I still have at number 2 all time behind MJ, but still one of the best players ever. He's definitely in that first tier. Imagine if like Chris Bosh doesn't get the rebound, Ray Allen doesn't make the shot. Imagine if Kyrie Irving doesn't make the shot. Now what does his legacy look like? So it's like there's both ways on that. And if you think about it, LeBron gets a boost in his overall thing because somebody else made a rebound and somebody else made a shot. Somebody else and it's like, that's just how basketball is. We look at these accolades, and that's why I think that when people do these like GOAT arguments and when people judge players from different eras, I'm always like, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. First off, I always look at eye test and accolades, not just one or the other. And then also understand that things over time improve. Like Michael Jordan didn't lift weights until halfway through his NBA career. Didn't lift weights. He didn't have access. Like they talk about, he had VHS tapes and that was like his scouting. Imagine if he had analytics and if he had, data, and if he had specialized skill instruction. He was doing all of this based on just feel. He was inventing a lot of things that we've trained now are things that he just was doing off reaction. And so I think the progression of the NBA, you and I talked about this off camera beforehand. People were like, offensively, they've changed the rules so much that it's given such an advantage. And I do think there have been some rule changes that have favored, the offense. But truthfully, it's just the offense has got so much better and the defense hasn't improved at the same rate. And so that's why there's a bigger gap between the great, because you even put like, people talk about college, like college, they play harder, they play defense. You go put an NBA player in a college game and go see if they play defense. They don't play. They don't play better defense. It's just the offense is that good. So I really do think that that's the, when you talk about Chris Paul, to circle back, he overachieved. While he had some unfortunate things happen, some in his control and some out of his control, he overachieved and he became one of the greatest point guards, a great leader. And regardless how you feel, if he didn't get it done, if he did, do more than he was, kind of supposed to do, he had a hell of a career. And so I think that I wish more people shined light on the positives instead of just the negatives. And I think we're in such a ring-chasing culture, which is, trust me, I'm a St. Louis Rams fan. St. Louis Rams fan, not a LA Rams fan. So for me, we had 20 years of the team. 16 of them were miserable. 16 of them, we were awful. And then we had the greatest show on turf for 4 years. And that's the only part that I choose to remember. You know what I mean? That's all I choose to remember. And so I do understand the importance of winning, and that's the ultimate goal.
Sorry about Super Bowl 36 ruining your second Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had, you have 3 cameras right here. You guys had those during our practice. That's why we end up losing. But it's one of those things that...
what a BS story.
It's one of those things.
What a sore loser.
But people do remember the championships. But I do think that there is a way to celebrate players, even if they do fall short. And it's funny because every year... I have players that compete against each other in the playoffs. Like last year, a great example, I had Chet in the finals and I have Tyrese Halliburton in the finals. And when Tyrese, goes down and whatever, I have people that will literally be like, even though he went down and he was on pace for having an epic game 7, there were still haters that would be like, see, told you he wasn't going to win. And I'm like, you realize I have another guy on the other team too. So either way, I was going to have somebody that was going to lose, So I just think that, there's one champion each year. 29 teams are going to lose. That means 29 star players, number 1 options, are going to lose each and every year. And so that's what makes championships, so special.
I mean, it's like we talked about earlier with my upbringing as a Boston sports fan. I know what it's like to win the big ones. I know what it's like to lose the big ones. You need a lot of luck.
Yep.
You need a lot of good fortune on your side in addition to positioning yourself.
Yep.
It's like creating your own luck in life, taking advantage of opportunity. And ultimately, I think in regards to Chris Paul, it's just more the weirdness aspect to me that just stands out. Obviously, he's an unbelievable point guard. Definitely overachieved at his size. One of the greatest point guards I've ever seen in my life and will ever see in my life. And the fact he did it at his size is truly remarkable.